to get the right drugs and the right treatment so that you can stave it off as long as possible.
All right, let's go to a lighter topic. We love Bruce Willis. He's such an icon.
I love him.
So, all right, Taylor Swift. She's getting some criticism by her ex.
Bruce Willis, born on March 19, 1955 in Idar Oberstein, West Germany, to a German mother and an American soldier father, was not always the bold, confident Hollywood star the world came to admire. He spent his early childhood in a military family which later relocated to New Jersey, where he struggled with a severe stutter that made school and social interactions challenging. Young Bruce found his voice through acting, realizing on stage he could speak fluently, a discovery that would change his life forever. He enrolled at Montclair State University studying drama and later moved to New York City to pursue his dream of becoming an actor, working odd jobs as a bartender to survive and auditioning relentlessly. His charm, quick wit, and rugged looks soon got him noticed. He began his career with small roles in off-Broadway productions and television, but it wasn't until the 1985 television series Moonlighting that Bruce became a household name, portraying the wisecracking detective David Addison. His charisma and comedic timing stood out, and the role catapulted him into stardom. It also earned him an Emmy and a Golden Globe, setting the stage for a transition to film. When Die Hard hit theaters in 1988, it changed everything. The role of John McClane redefined the action hero. He was relatable, flawed, sarcastic, and vulnerable. Not the typical invincible action figure, Bruce brought humanity to the genre, and audiences loved it. The film became a massive hit, and Bruce Willis was cemented as a global superstar. With Die Hard success came more opportunities. He starred in box office hits like Pulp Fiction, The Sixth Sense, Armageddon, and The Fifth Element, showcasing his range beyond action into drama, sci-fi, and even comedy. His gritty voice, piercing stare, and blend of toughness with heart made him one of the most bankable stars of the 90s and 2000s. But while his professional life soared, his personal life was often in the spotlight. In 1987, Bruce married actress Demi Moore, and together they became one of Hollywood's most talked about couples. They had 3 daughters, rumors scout and Tallulah, and appeared to be the perfect Hollywood family. But fame came with its own pressures. Rumors of infidelity, work schedules, and growing apart strained their relationship, and after over a decade together, they divorced in 2000. Despite the split, Bruce and Demi remained remarkably close, even vacationing together and co-parenting harmoniously, setting an example of post-divorce friendship rare in Hollywood circles. In 2009, Bruce found love again with British model Emma Hemming. They married in a private ceremony and soon had 2 daughters, Mabel and Evelyn. Fatherhood in his 50s brought a new calm and devotion to family. He often spoke of the joy of spending time with his daughters and how being a husband and dad brought more fulfillment than Hollywood ever could off-screen. Bruce was known to be opinionated, confident, and sometimes controversial. His direct style rubbed some the wrong way, especially on film sets, where co-stars described him as demanding or difficult. Directors like Kevin Smith and actors like Sylvester Stallone publicly spoke of creative tensions, but none of that dimmed his box office appeal. Bruce remained a powerhouse through the 2010s, but fans started noticing changes. He appeared in numerous low-budget films with short screen time, strange performances, and limited dialogue. Rumors swirled. Was he just cashing in, or was something deeper happening many didn't realize behind the scenes? His health was deteriorating. What looked like career missteps were actually signs of something tragic to come. Memory loss, confusion, and speech issues began affecting his ability to perform on set. He relied on earpieces to be fed lines, and his team carefully structured scenes around his growing limitations. In 2020, Bruce's family made a heartbreaking announcement. He was stepping away from acting due to aphasia, a condition that impacts communication. Though devastating, the public rallied around him. Messages of love poured in. Fans, co-stars, and directors shared tributes, recalling his generosity, humor, and unforgettable performances. He became not just a movie star, but a symbol of strength and dignity in the face of declinias. The world absorbed the news of Bruce Willis's diagnosis. A deep sadness settled over fans who had grown up watching his movies, from explosive blockbusters to heartfelt dramas. Bruce had been a constant presence, a familiar voice and face that represented resilience, humor, and heart. Now facing aphasia, a condition that disrupts the ability to communicate, he was retreating from the public eye. While many knew of aphasia, few understood its gravity. It's not simply forgetting lines or having a foggy memory. It's a breakdown in how the brain processes language. It can make speaking, writing, understanding words, and even forming sentences incredibly difficult. Bruce's once sharp tongue and quick wit had been gradually slipping away in private. The changes were painfully evident. His wife Emma Hemming Willis stepped forward as the primary caregiver, shielding him from media scrutiny while also raising awareness about the condition. She began sharing small glimpses of their family life, showing Bruce smiling, walking in nature, dancing with his daughters, and embracing the present. Even as his world changed dramatically, her strength was evident, her love unwavering. She often posted on social media about caregiving challenges and the importance of mental health, reminding followers that behind every diagnosis is a real family navigating real pain. Demi Moore also stayed close, forming a beautiful bond with Emma and their blended families coming together in a rare show of unity. Their daughters rallied around their father, each one expressing their love and grief in touching posts. Rumor especially wrote emotional tributes about what it meant to watch her strong father grow quiet. Tallulah opened up about her own mental health struggles and how caring for her dad gave her purpose and clarity. Together, the Willis-Moore Hemming family became a beacon of grace, showing the world how to handle tragedy with compassion and dignity. Despite their fame, they were human like everyone else, facing something they could not fix or control. Bruce's retirement marked the end of an era, but also the beginning of a more intimate chapter, one focused on love, presence, and family. He stopped doing interviews, no more movie sets, no more red carpets. But he was still there in every smile, in every family photo, and in every old movie replayed by fans. Seeking comfort from his iconic roles, Hollywood took note. Tributes poured in from stars like John Travolta, who had worked with Bruce on Pulp Fiction, and The Look, whose Talking series, recalling his loyalty, humor, and brilliance. Samuel L. Jackson said Bruce was more than an actor, he was a legend who always gave everything on screen and off. Sylvester Stallone shared old behind-the-scenes memories from the Expendables franchise, calling Bruce a warrior and a true friend. The industry had lost one of its greats, not in death but in silence, and that silence echoed louder than any explosion in a Die-Hard movie. His co-stars, directors, and fans all recognized that something had been taken too soon, not his life, but his voice, the very thing that once freed him from a childhood stutter, now slipping away, leaving behind a legacy carved not just in celluloid but in human hearts. The world began rewatching his films with new eyes. Suddenly lines like "Yippee-ki-yay" carried a deeper meaning. Scenes of him racing against time, defusing bombs, or comforting a ghost in The Sixth Sense now felt like love letters from a man who could no longer speak them. His old interviews were watched millions of times, fans clinging to his voice, his laugh, his stories. Even old bloopers and press junkets became treasures, every word now precious, because they knew they would hear no new ones. Yet Bruce remained brave. He kept living, kept walking in the woods, playing harmonica, hugging his children. He never disappeared completely. His presence, though quiet, still radiated strength and hope, and in doing so, he became more than a movie star. He became a symbol of what it means to keep living even when everything changes. Somewhere in the stillness of the Willis home, there's a kind of quiet that doesn't feel empty. It feels sacred. It's the kind of silence that holds love, that holds decades of laughter, that holds the soft echo of a man who gave the world everything he had and is now being given the same in return, a silence filled with honor and tenderness, and the kind of grace that only comes when a family decides to love someone exactly as they are, not as they were. Bruce's daughters have spoken often, through their actions rather than their words, showing how deep their bond with him runs. They're not just watching their father fade, they're walking beside him, holding his hand every step of the way, and in doing so they've become the storytellers of his final chapter. Rumor's voice breaks slightly when she speaks of her dad. She doesn't use past tense, she still says, "Dad loves jazz, Dad loves breakfast with lots of syrup, Dad still smiles." When he hears old blues guitar, and that choice of language matters, it's a small rebellion against a diagnosis that tries to erase a person before they're gone. Tallulah has shared how it feels to watch the man who used to scoop her up with a laugh now struggle to find her name, but she also shared that sometimes when she least expects it, he'll touch her face or whisper something that only she can understand, and in those moments, she knows he's still there. Emma posts, not because it's easy but because it's necessary. She knows that caregivers across the world need to see that they're not alone, that love can still live in the hardest places. She's turned pain into purpose, building a new kind of strength, one that doesn't rely on being tough but on being soft, in a world that doesn't always understand. And Demi Moore, the woman who once stood beside him in marriage, now stands beside him in friendship, showing the world that love can evolve, that it doesn't have to end when the vows do. She brings calm, she brings presence, and her quiet support has become one of the most beautiful parts of Bruce's journey. As fans, we often think we know our heroes. We think of them as invincible, of being forever young, forever loud, forever confident. But watching Bruce now, we're reminded that real strength isn't in the punchlines or the stunts, it's in the way a man allows himself to be held when he can no longer hold others. It's in the way He allows his family to love him even when he can't say it back, and we the audience who grew up with his voice now learn to sit in the silence with him, to be present, to remember, for him to carry his story with care, because that's what legacy is. It's not about being remembered, it's about being held in memory. When the world learned that Bruce had frontotemporal dementia, it didn't just break hearts, it broke illusions. The illusion that heroes don't get sick, that men must always be strong, that voices last forever. But in that breaking there was also truth, the truth that aging and illness don't diminish a man like Bruce. They reveal the most beautiful parts of him, because in the season of quiet his love speaks louder than ever, in a glance, in a breath, in the way his daughters look at him with eyes full of history, in the way Emma cradles his hand like it's a map of their life together, and in the way the world has stopped to say, thank you for the stories, for the laughs, for the explosions, and the heartbreak, and the honesty. Thank you for showing us what it means to live fully, and now what it means to let go gently as the sun begins to set on Bruce Willis's public life. We aren't watching a star fade, we're watching a man return to something simpler, something more eternal. He's no longer the action hero on the screen, but the quiet hero in a family album, the heartbeat in a home, the legacy in our minds, and the warmth in our hearts. And maybe, just maybe, that's the most heroic role he's ever played in. So as the final credits begin to roll on the public chapter of Bruce Willis's life, we don't say goodbye, we say thank you for the stories that shaped us, for the characters who made us laugh, cry, and believe in something bigger than ourselves. Thank you for being the voice behind so many of our memories, and the face behind a kind of masculinity that was never just about strength but also about heart. He taught us that heroes could bleed, that men could cry, that even in the middle of chaos there could be humor. And now he teaches us something even braver, that letting go can be just as powerful as holding on, that silence can be just as meaningful as speech, that the human spirit is still intact even when words begin to fade. Bruce Willis is no longer just a name on a marquee. He's become a symbol, a quiet reminder of how fleeting yet how precious life really is. And in this silence, in this stillness, there is beauty, there is legacy, and there is love. His family doesn't grieve alone, and neither do we. Millions of fans across the world hold space for him, now lighting a candle in our minds every time we hear a harmonica play or rewatch that iconic moment from Die Hard. As Bruce Willis's world grew quieter, the noise of the outside world somehow grew louder. But not in the way of chaos or distraction. It was a chorus of voices from around the world, rising in tribute and gratitude and shared heartbreak. Fans who had grown up with him suddenly realized they were now the caretakers of his legacy. People who once lined up for midnight screenings of Die Hard were now watching interviews with tear-filled eyes, hearing the pauses in his voice, noticing the moments of stillness that never used to be there, and yet they stayed, they watched, they remembered. Because for them, Bruce wasn't just a movie star, he was a memory, a presence, a part of their own life stories. For some, he was the first action hero they ever saw. For others, he was the romantic lead in a film that brought comfort during heartbreak. For many, he was the reason they fell in love with movies in the first place. And now, as his light dimmed slowly, gently, his impact shone even brighter. It was a reminder that we don't just mourn the loss of people, we also mourn the fading of eras, the passing of time, the end of something familiar. Bruce's illness was a collective reckoning with how fragile our icons are, how human they always were. Beneath the bravado, Emma Hemming Willis became a steady lighthouse in that storm. She wasn't just his wife, she became his voice, his protector, his mirror. When he couldn't find the words, she found them for him. She posted updates not for sympathy but to raise awareness. She shared the quiet heartbreak of watching her partner struggle to speak or forget where he was, but she also shared joy, the sound of laughter, the warmth of a hug, the beauty of a simple walk in the garden. She said, some days were hard, others were harder, but every day still had meaning. She began collaborating with dementia care advocates, doctors, and families who were also navigating this cruel illness. She didn't want to just endure the journey, she wanted to transform it into something useful, something that could light the path for others walking the same road. She became a caregiver warrior, and in doing so, she helped shift the conversation around aphasia and frontotemporal dementia from one of silence to one of strength. Inside their home life, adapted routines became rituals. Small gestures took on massive meaning, a squeeze of the hand, a gentle smile, a song hummed from the other room. Bruce found comfort in rhythm and familiarity. The family stopped asking him to remember and instead focused on helping him feel safe. Seen, loved music became especially important. Bruce, who had always loved the blues, now found calm in melody. Songs they used to dance to became soundtracks for their mornings. Jazz instrumentals played while he sipped coffee or sat near the window, and every now and then, if the mood was right, he'd hum along or tap his fingers to the beat. Those tiny responses meant everything. They were signs that he was still in there, still present, still feeling. There were difficult days, when the confusion became overwhelming, when the silence stretched too long, When the sadness in his eyes mirrored the grief in theirs, Tallulah once described those moments as emotionally paralyzing, like watching a ship drift farther and farther away, and knowing there's nothing you can do but wave and hope he still sees you from the horizon. But even then, the family chose connection over despair. They learned to communicate in new ways, with gestures, with touch, with routine. They leaned into the love that surrounded them, and that love became a kind of language in itself. On the outside, Hollywood moved forward. New stars rose, franchises evolved, movies were made without him, and yet Bruce's shadow remained over everything. He had shaped the action genre, redefined the vulnerable hero, and brought something human to roles that could have easily been cardboard cutouts. When people watched new films, they still compared them to him, not out of habit but out of reverence. And in the quiet corners of the internet, tributes kept coming. Fans edited montages of his best moments. From smirking one-liners to explosive rescues, others wrote essays about how he helped them through depression with just a scene or a quote. Some even named their children after him, not because of the fame, but because of what he represented.
I'm really grateful for, rolling all the way back. It's been a long time since we separated, that we were both able to be clear that our children were our...
To a struggling production assistant, stories of how he'd make a stunt double feel like the star for a day. Bruce's legacy wasn't just built on box office numbers, it was built on how he treated people when the cameras weren't rolling. And through it all, the Willis family kept sharing glimpses of their new normal. The birthday celebrations where Bruce blew out candles with help from his daughters, the summer barbecues where laughter still echoed even when the words didn't, the holidays spent wrapped in warmth and memory. These weren't pity posts, they were love letters, moments of resilience in the face of something so deeply unfair. Bruce Willis may no longer be able to deliver a monologue or leap from a burning building, but in these final chapters of his public life, he is doing something arguably even braver. He is teaching us how to live with grace, how to love without condition, and how to let go without forgetting, because at the heart of it all, Bruce isn't fading into silence. He is becoming part of something more permanent, more sacred than film. He is becoming memory, living legacy, human proof that the soul outlasts even the sharpest voice. As the months passed, Bruce Willis's diagnosis began to settle into the reality of everyday life. For those who loved him, the shock wore off, but the sorrow lingered, not just among his family, but across the world. Fans felt a quiet ache every time his name trended online. They clicked, hoping for good news, fearing the worst, and always feeling a sense of loss. Because it wasn't just about an actor stepping away from his career, it was about a man who had defined an entire era of storytelling. Bruce had been the face of the gritty underdog, the man who always stood up, even when he was bloodied, broken, or alone. In movies like Die Hard, he wasn't just a cop fighting terrorists. He was a symbol of resilience. He brought humanity to action. He bled, he cried, he doubted himself, but he always kept going. And now in real life, his greatest battle wasn't scripted, it wasn't choreographed for a climactic scene. It was unfolding slowly, quietly, painfully, and there was no clear ending in sight. Emma Hemming Willis was now doing something few people in the world were prepared to understand. She was watching the love of her life gradually fade away in a way that's hard to describe. She once said that grief can live alongside joy, and that both emotions can be part of the same day, the same breath. She would share videos of Bruce laughing with the kids or walking outside with her. And in those moments, you could see him still there, the same crooked grin, the same spark in his eyes, but also the flickers of confusion, the occasional blank stare, the silence that followed a sentence halfway spoken. Her eyes told the truth behind the smile. She was hurting, but she was holding on. This version of Bruce was softer, quieter, more dependent, but still full of soul and presence, and that's what his family clung to. Demi Moore remained a constant part of the picture, which for Hollywood was extraordinary. To women who once loved the same man, now united by care, love, and purpose, rather than jealousy or drama. Demi posted photos of family gatherings, Thanksgiving dinners, and casual afternoons in Idaho, and she always included Bruce not as a memory, but as a living, breathing part of the family. He may not always respond clearly, he may forget things, but he was loved not for what he used to do, but for who he still was. The daughters especially became central to this story. Tallulah Willis, who had gone through her own battles with mental health, eating disorders, and identity, now found herself more grounded than ever. She began writing about her father's condition, about what it meant to watch the strongest man in her world become vulnerable. Her words were raw
and compassion. Does it necessitate sadness or grief or loss? I think those are really important things.
In your hands, trying to cherish every drop, while knowing you can't stop it from slipping away. Rumor Willis, the eldest, took on the quiet role of protector. She didn't speak often about the situation, but when she did, it was powerful. She posted photos of her dad holding her baby. She shared
is pain divided.
showing up for every play and cheering the loudest. From the audience, for her, it wasn't about the blockbuster actor, it was about the man who made her feel seen, safe, and proud. His presence was the constant soundtrack to her childhood, and now she was determined to be that presence for him. Even younger daughters Evelyn and Mabel, who Bruce had with Emma, were growing up in this delicate balance. They were young, but they understood more than people realized. Emma often shared how they were learning to love their dad as he is, not as he was. They were reading books about aphasia, learning to communicate with gestures and patience. They would sing songs with him, not expecting responses, just sharing moments. And in those moments, Bruce seemed at peace, but outside their home, the world was watching and grieving. To fans started revisiting his movies not just for nostalgia, but as a way to reconnect with him. Die Hard became more than a Christmas movie. It became a tribute. Pulp Fiction more than a cult classic. It became proof of his range. The Sixth Sense more than a ghost story. It became hauntingly prophetic. Lines like "I see dead people" now felt like a metaphor for things lost, unseen, unheard. The Hollywood community responded with rare vulnerability. Bruce's former co-stars, directors, and producers came forward with stories of kindness, jokes, loyalty, and long hours on set. Michael Bay said Bruce once stayed late to help a young actor rehearse, even though he didn't have to. Quentin Tarantino praised Bruce for trusting his vision on Pulp Fiction even when the studios didn't, and Brad Pitt recalled how Bruce had given him advice early in his career, saying, "Don't be cool, just be real." Fans created tribute pages, reels, documentaries, playlists. People who never met Bruce were mourning him in real time, not because he was gone, but because they could feel the distance widening between his voice and the world that loved it. It was a slow goodbye, the kind that happens in layers and waves. And through all of this, Bruce kept showing up in small ways. Emma would post a video of him waving to the camera, walking the dog, dancing with Mabel, or just sitting in the sun with a hat on watching birds. He wasn't acting anymore, but he was still here, and in those moments he gave something even more precious than performances. He gave presence. He gave peace, and most of all, he gave love. This video covers legal allegations in a news context. All claims are from official filings and no guilt is implied until proven in court. Please keep all discussions respectful. Allegations are not facts until proven in court.